In VBA, you're going to use a lot of loops to go through data and perform actions. So in this lesson, I'm going to teach you the while loop and the for loop with some examples. So let's start. Here in VBA, I have created a module. If you don't have this module, just right click here and do insert module. In my first sheet, what I have is some data. So I have some IDs, names, sales, commission, and I want to calculate the total, which is column C plus column D. Now, in another lesson about if statement, and I'm going to put a link in the description, I have converted this to a table, and then based on this, I went through my Excel table with a for loop, and I performed some action. In this case, I'm not going to convert it to a table. I'm going to use a while loop to perform the same operation. And this is a good technique if you have a column that you know is always filled without blanks. For example, this technique will not work if you have a blank like this here. So let's start. Here I have a sub in my module. So I'm going to do dim I as long and I is equal to 2. Why? Because I want to start at row 2. So I'm giving I the number 2. Then I'm going to do while sheet. This is sheet 1. So sheet 1 dot range A and I dot value is different than nothing. Then we do while and here, and we don't forget to increment I by doing I is equal to I plus 1. So what happens here? I start, my index is at 2, so I look at A2 and I check whether it's blank or not. It's not blank. I'm going to perform an action here. Then I'm going to do I is equal to 2 plus 1, 3. Then I go to A3 and I do the same until I get a blank row. This is why I was telling you before that it will stop whenever you reach the end and you have a blank row. So make sure that your data or your reference column is always filled with anything. Here, I'm just going to do the operation. So I'm going to do sheet 1 dot range. We do E and I dot value is equal to, we just copy this to make it easier. We do a plus, we copy it again and paste it, and here we do C and D. Just so you see better, I'm just going to do space and then underscore enter. So this is how to go to the line without having an error in the code. So here I'm just summing them up and I'm putting the result here. So let's try it. We just run it from here and you can see that the results are there. If you want to make sure that every time it will refresh the results, what you could do is the following. You can do sheet 1 dot range and then you do E2 to something very big. For example, E100,000 dot value is equal to nothing. So this way, if I go through the code and I do F8, you can see that first I'm deleting the data and then I can do F5 and I'm going to put the data back. So now I can add a button. For example, I go to Insert, Illustration, Shapes. I can select this. I can make it, for example, this color. I can write inside, Execute. Then I can insert, for example, an icon. I can say Run. Here I add this man. I can put the man here, for example. Then I can right click on the man, assign macro, test 1, right click on this, assign macro, test 1. So I'm assigning it to both. Then I right click on the man, then press Ctrl, then right click on both. We can say group. So now anywhere I click here, it will execute the macro. Let's try it. We click, you can see that it executes the macro. Let's go to our second example. Here I have some survey results. And as you can see, I have data all over the place in my Excel sheet. So what can I do to go through this data and count how many times the person has given us a grade that is above 5? So to do this, we're going to use something called used range. So let's start. Here I have a sub, and what I'm going to do is the following. I'm going to do dim cell as range. So this is an object. I'm using cell as a name, but the object is range. And then I'm going to use a for loop. So for each cell in sheet 2 now, because this is the name, dot used range, next cell. So every time you have for, you need a next with it. You use tab to ident your code, and here you need to do two things. The first thing you need to do is to check whether each cell has a number in it, because if you don't, it will count everything even if it has a text. Then you need to check whether the number is above 5. So let's do this. We're going to use an if statement. We're going to say if cell dot value is above 5 and is numeric. This is the property, is numeric cell dot value. Then don't forget the end if here. We ident, we need to count. So we're going to create a count variable, dim count as integer. In this case, count is equal to 0. We started at 0. And here we're going to do count is equal to count plus 1. So every time I find a cell which has a numeric value that is above 5, I'm going to add it. And at the end, I can do message box, and then I can give count to message box. So I want to show this on the screen. Let's also create a quick button and check it. So we go shape, we can insert a triangle this time, and then right click and do assign macro test2, and then we click on it. We have 4 numbers that are above 5. 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is correct. Now I want to show you as a bonus in a next sub a normal for loop, because here we have each, if you see, because we created an object called cell. But let's do sub test3, and then here we can do dim I as long, and we can do, for example, for I is equal to 1, 2, 3. So I want 1, 2, and 3. We do next I. If you noticed here, I didn't put each, right? Then I can do message box and show the I. So if I click on run here, you can get 1, 2, and 3. So that's how the normal for loop works. If you wanted to skip numbers, you can do step here. So for example, if I do step 2, it means do 1, 3, 5, etc. So I click here and I have 1 and 3. So it skipped number 2. If I want to go backwards, I do step and then I do -2, for example. So I can do for I equal 3 to 1, and then I do step -2. And then I click here, I get 3, then 1. So this is it. This is a quick lesson on for and while loops that you can use in your VBA codes. Please let me know about the scenarios that you face where this is applicable and any issues you might face, so I might be able to tell you how to solve them.